In this video, I want to talk about what is working from a B2B lead generation perspective on LinkedIn ads in 2022. And I wanted to actually wait until the second half of the year to make this video to make sure I had enough insight. Now, during the day, I oversee the paid social practice for Brain Labs, which is a global advertising agency. And I have the pleasure of working with many large global brands that are advertising actively on LinkedIn. In fact, we're one of the largest spenders when it comes to independent ad agencies. So what I want to share with you again today is not so much go into the tactics that we know have worked in the past. We know lead generation, creating content on the platform, and amplifying it. We know it works because there's over 700 million monthly active professionals on the platform with a high degree of intention. And this is a platform also where people self-identify. So they're on here and they have an incentive to constantly update what company they work for, what they do, the skills that they have, the certifications, because it helps them progress in their career. That said, let's jump right into it. Now, I've made tons of videos in the past where I've addressed strategies and gone in depth. This video is not meant to be a repetition, but as an addition to that. So the first place I want to start is answering the question, what does it cost to actually advertise on LinkedIn in 2022? Because we often hear that things are quite expensive. So I did an analysis recently at Brain Labs, and this is all anonymized data, so you won't be able to tell who the client is. Well, we looked at our B2B clients across regions, and we took a look at clients that were particularly, in the tech SaaS business model. And what we found was that in the US market, on average, we were seeing a cost per lead of $199. Now that is blended. So that could be some leads from people who are downloading top of the funnel content like a white paper or an ebook. And it could also include some people who are actually signing up for a demo or a trial, which is a more important business objective to advertisers on LinkedIn. Now, what we've learned is that it is definitely more expensive to advertise in North America than some of the other markets like EMEA and APAC. So this is going to be crucial because when you're coming onto LinkedIn, you have to make sure you have the right budget to see the success for your campaigns. If you're coming on with like a $3,000 budget and trying to run a 30-day test, you might not have enough budget to really see performance. And there's a really great report that you can access if you have a LinkedIn rep called an exposure analysis report, which will actually show you how many times your users need to see your ads before they're actually going to click on it and before they're going to submit a lead. And this is actually something that's really helped us to understand what is the right budget we need to be spending against audiences for each one of our campaigns to make sure that we're actually driving as many conversions as possible. But again, we know LinkedIn is expensive, and there's a reason for that. It's because you have decision makers. You can reach CEOs, you can reach founders, you can reach people that are gonna be very influential in a buying process. And it is very likely that if you're advertising on LinkedIn, you're selling a product or service that isn't cheap. And there is a ton of value of advertising on LinkedIn. Now, the second thing I want to address in 2022 is what type of content is needed to dominate your campaigns, because this is actually something that can change year over year. Strategies like how you use the platform as a whole, I feel like every year is not going to change, but the kind of content that's resonating, I think that's very important to consider. And one thing that did happen a lot during the pandemic was there was just a rise of content on LinkedIn. There was all this thought leadership that was being produced, articles every day, webinars every day. So it's important that you understand what is the right type of content that you need and at what stage of the buying journey is that content developed for. So as an example, very top of the funnel is reports and ebooks. This might be when your prospects are not ready to buy. They might just be familiarizing themselves at this point with a challenge that they have, and they might be very early on in their decision-making process to understand what are the solutions out there in the market. And reports and ebooks are great ways for you to position your brand as an expert and point your customer to the solution. Now, a little bit lower in the funnel is webinars. And if you think about it from a timing investment, a report or an ebook could be something that someone can potentially download and consume, maybe even in a couple of minutes, 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending how extensive it is. A webinar requires a lot more commitment. And usually webinars are not 10 to 15 minutes. They're usually half an hour to an hour. And a lot of times they're booked in advance, sometimes on demand. So the webinar content needs to be for users who are already aware of a challenge and potentially what the solution might be, and they want to go a little bit more deeper. Maybe they want to get a mix of thought leadership and a little bit of technical know-how as well. Now, as you progress, you're also going to want some content around case studies and maybe even comparison guides. This is going to be for an audience that's closer to making a purchase decision, and they already understand the problem. They understand what solutions are out there. They've done some of this research. Now they want to get a little bit more confidence to do business with you. And a case study can be a great way to display that, because you can share companies you've done business with and results. And all those are validators of why they should do business with you. Now, comparison guide, I think, also makes sense because they might be comparing you to other competitors and creating their own scorecards to make that decision. And you can get ahead of them by you providing that comparison guide. And it gives you now an opportunity for you to highlight the things that are different about your product or your service and make that stand out and make a case for it. Now, the last piece of content, of course, which kind of can sometimes be misconstrued, a case study as a testimonial, it's in the similar bucket. It's someone that's already familiar with the challenge and has done some research. What I'll say it's important to note is that I see a lot of advertisers get this wrong because they do a ton of the reports and ebooks, so they make a lot of that top funnel content. But then after someone is aware of the challenge and the problem, it could be a very long time before they make a decision. So they're not going to read your report and ebook again and again and again. You need to have content in that process to make sure that you're a constant touch point as they're evaluating and making decisions. So asset mix is definitely the key, and there sort of is some methodology to this. Now, if you are advanced and you feel like you have a good mix of content, you're spending a healthy amount of budget, you've seen some great results, but you want to know what else you can be doing in 2022 to really level up. And again, I don't want to talk about things from the past that I've mentioned in other videos. I did a series in 2021 and 2020 where I talked about my B2B secret strategies. I'm not trying to repeat that content. If you would love to see it, make sure to check it out. It's on our page. But one thing that I haven't talked too much about because I feel it's more advanced is third-party data providers. Now, one of the reasons advertisers, B2B advertisers especially, love LinkedIn is because of the scalability of targeting self-identified users that are telling you what company they work for, what's their position, where they worked at before, what their skills are. They're giving all that data up to the platform, which lets us advertisers target effectively because there's an incentive for users on the platform to keep it updated. Now, you can go beyond that data. It is very powerful. There's a lot you can do there, but you can go beyond that. And Acxiom and Bombora are two third-party data providers that work with LinkedIn, that integrate with LinkedIn, that allow you to access other types of audiences. One thing I would like to highlight in particular with Acxiom is they have a lot of audiences if you're trying to target people that might be in market. I know also there's a lot of B2B audience segments they have already built out. One of the things I like about Bombora, which is really great, is that Bombora is a repository of a cooperative of over 5,000 websites where a lot of B2B IT decision makers tend to do some research. And what their technology allows them to do is basically segment the data by companies, and they can actually detect where in a specific company. So if you're doing an ABM approach, ABM marketing approach, where you're focusing on key businesses that you're going after, Bombora is going to be your best friend because they're able, with their technology, to give you audience segments that are surging in intent for a particular topic. So as an example, if your product is a CRM system, you can get a Bombora audience where these are target companies you're targeting, but specifically the companies who are actively in market researching and going to these research sites. So you can get this real-time intent data that you're not going to get natively within LinkedIn. And you can import all these as match audiences, of course, and then run ads against that. So something that I probably wouldn't explore if you're just getting into LinkedIn advertising, But at some point, if you feel like you've exhausted the native audiences and you've done a lot of testing, this is a great new ground to sort of break out, especially if you're doing ABM at a large scale. Now, the last piece I want to leave you here with is a reframing of the way that you think about the sales cycle and the sales funnel. The traditional sales funnel is upside down, a triangle, and the idea is that people go through these logical stages from awareness all the way down to making a purchase. However, with B2B, it is very different. And I want you to think about it this way. This is a great example I actually seen from LinkedIn. When you're going to buy a car or a home, this is a process that you might take years to make. And you might only buy one car every 5 or 10 years. You might only buy one home, every 10 to 20 years. So most of the time, 95% of the time, you are actually out of market for that purchase. Only a small segment of your audience is going to be in market for your product and service at any given time. And that's usually who you do the lead generation efforts towards, right? Which most of the advertisers I work with and most of the people that I interact with, they just want leads because that's the most important thing to their business, getting qualified leads. And they put 99% of their advertising budget on that. But if you think about it, most people, before they get to the point where they're ready to make a buying decision, you've already chosen the brands who you want to do business with. So if I asked you, if you're going to buy a brand new car tomorrow, what 3 brands pop into your head? There's a reason why there's 3 specific brands that just popped into your head. It's because you've been exposed to brand media, that top of the funnel content in TV ads and out of home and everywhere over a period of years, and you've been educated on the positioning, the value proposition of those brands. So now when you're 6 months out of making a decision, you've already chosen who are the brands you've shortlisted. So in the same way, this is the same thing that's happening with your business. If you're focusing 95% of your money only talking to the people who are ready to buy today, you might have already missed the opportunity. The opportunity is really to be talking to these audiences before they're ready to buy, so they're thinking of you and considering you. And we know that the average B2B buying cycle for a tech specifically can be anywhere between 1 to 2 years. So after you've really figured out a lead gen program, I would implore you to start exploring more of these top of the funnel tactics, of course, in ways that you can measure and validate the impact of that media. With that said, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And much success to your LinkedIn ads campaigns in 2022. If you want to see some more LinkedIn ads content, drop me a comment below and let me know. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace.